change is when the exciting thing comes out of it. A lot of bad ideas are talked about before the great one is expressed. So risk is important. I think in nonprofit specifically, it's difficult to risk when you don't have stability. And so that's why that was my first goal, is to gain stability of the organization. The more stable and stronger foundation I have at the company, the more risk I can take. You know, we have a DAC team. It's called Direction, Alignment, and Commitment, and it's 30 of our leaders that meet with me every other month to talk about things, leadership, but also the business. And they were asking about the endowment. And they said, what are we going to spend with that endowment? And I said, we're not going to spend the endowment. That endowment is giving us opportunity to take risks. I budgeted this year with a deficit in all of our departments. I overstaffed all of my departments with the hope they can backfill it with census and product and service. I could not take that risk if I didn't have an endowment. I would have been afraid to, because I don't want to lay people off. And if we make a mistake at the end of the year that I misjudged this, I could pull it back without laying people off and making a big mistake. Risk is important. If you're not moving forward, you're going backwards.
All right, guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Hart Hustle Podcast. Now, I'm really excited to be able to sit here with this amazing leader sitting across from me here today. I've got the president and CEO of Helping Hand. This is Bill Dwyer, who's joining the show. Bill, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Keenan. This is exciting for us to be able to get our mission and vision out there and learn more about us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so part of the Hart and Hustle podcast is learning about the leaders who sit across from us, right? There's a huge fathom or a huge swath of our society that thinks that CEOs, presidents of organizations, leaders just pop up someday. We don't really know their journey and how they got there. Now, one of my observations that I've been able to obtain by having so many conversations here on the podcast is there's an interesting pattern that I see in CEOs that work specifically in your space. Often they start as licensed marriage and family therapists, which is really interesting to me. And you have that same common thread. So why do you think I would say your professional life as being a therapist has translated so well into you being a CEO and leader of your organization?
Because you got to know how to battle, I guess. That's, marriage counseling is not always easy. I think originally it's because you learn how to communicate and bring people together. To listen to multiple sides of the truth, because everybody's got their own truth, and then trying to connect them to a common belief. And my philosophy as a marriage therapist was, I'm not here to keep you together. I'm here to help you make a decision on what's best for you guys. And so it's not always to force two things together that may not belong anymore. It's to make sure they're comfortable in the decision they make. I really didn't know that a lot of nonprofit CEOs have that background. I think specifically this organization definitely needed that. We had a lot of miscommunication and bad relationships, and it needed my skill set.
It's just interesting how those skill sets, right, of being able to be a people person, create that human connection and help people navigate through challenges, both in their personal but also professional lives, create such good leaders. And I just think that's so interesting. I had another guy on the podcast. His name is Matt Simons out of South Carolina, works in an organization called New Hope Treatment Centers. And he was like, I think that is personally my secret superpower, was because I was an LMFT. Now I'm the leader of this organization. I can use some of my, skill sets to be able to engage with team members and meet people where they are. And I thought that was so beautiful.
You made me think about it too, is when I was a director of clinical for a long time, trained a lot of therapists, and I use the skill set even today as a manager, is you have to care enough not to care. And that's a strange thing to say, is I cannot be completely invested in everything that you're doing or I will not be objective. Mm. And so I have to keep some space and compartmentalized way of thinking, so I don't get caught up in the story, that I can actually help work through the whole thing to find the best for them.
There was a small statement that you made in our conversation when we first met each other. You said, I was a therapist for a long time, and then I got really tired of the Christmas parties. It was just me by myself. And so I decided, I want to be a CEO and a leader of a nonprofit. Let's talk a little bit about that aha moment, if you will, when you decided, like really in grounded truth, that I'm going to pivot. I'm going to do the work that's necessary to kind of, create an opportunity for myself in the future. Walk the audience through that.
Yeah, I love helping people. And so I think that's why I was drawn to being a therapist. And I guess in my naivete, I thought being in private practice is the way you do it. That's the only way that you can help people. But once I started exploring that I can help in an organization, a nonprofit, and then started seeing how I could help more than just the person in front of me, that really caught my interest of, I would like to lead a team that I can just inspire them to do great work. And we're just growing and multiplying how much we're doing things to make lives better. The journey that I went on, it wasn't quick. It was definitely a long thought process that I went through for that.
And what was that process like? I want to kind of put ourselves right in the shoes of this younger version of Bill who's saying, what, I think I can do bigger things. I want to be more impactful. I want to invest into more opportunities. What does that look like?
So I met a CEO when I was just starting out in my career, and I was just impressed with her and how she was able to bring people together. And now that I think about it, she was a therapist too. All
coming together.
You're right. You're right. I never thought of it that way. I was trying to figure out how to make an impact in the world. And I was talking to my coach last week, and we were visualizing what my next steps are to be, because I had this vision board of sorts to be a CEO. And my vision was on a Harley pulling up to my nonprofit. Well, I never got the Harley, but I definitely got where I am to be a CEO. What I knew is that I wanted to do it well, and I wanted to give 100% in it. And so I decided that I'm going to choose different nonprofits that are really good at certain things and work there. Now, my family had to accept this because I took pay cuts everywhere I went. Title wasn't necessarily that was important to me. It was the experience of learning. So I went to an organization that was good at fundraising, and I got a job.
Bill, I want to pause really quick here, because this is a really awesome conversation for us to think about, because, often our younger, I would say, people who have aspirations of being leaders and, CEOs of their own types of companies often forget that there are seasons of learning and there are seasons of earning. You were in a season as an LMFT, right, of earning, but then you intentionally took a step back to say, I'm going to go into a season of earning or learning, which is really interesting to me. How did you grapple with that nature to be able to say, I need to learn the skill sets that are necessary for me to be the best CEO possible?
I think I was born that way, to just make sure that I give 100%. And I don't like faking it till you make it. I don't believe in that. Because I think people that fake it till they make it could wind up faking it the whole time and learning poorly. And then they just believe that they're doing a good job. I needed to learn from people that I thought were really good at what they do. You can't, when it comes to leadership and management, I just don't think that you can walk straight in and understand how to be a good leader and a manager. I had an opportunity as a CEO when I was in my early 30s. The best thing that happened in my career is I didn't get it. I would have been terrible, and I would not have been where I am today. Taking a sacrifice, money, title, all those things, because you keep your eye on what you're trying to accomplish. And I didn't want to take a sidestep to make a little more money here or there. My goal was to be a great nonprofit CEO. And so I didn't make as much money in private practice until almost 10 years, 11 years after. It took a while, but money was not my goal. Money will come if you work hard and you get where you're supposed to be, you'll be surprised that the money just is there.
This is a realization that I've been having a lot with my team, but also some of my business partners who are a little bit younger, right? We often think that in order for us to be successful, we need to have automatic wins, accolades, things that come our way, praise from others. But if you think about what true success is, it's building the skill set over a long enough time horizon that you are so good at the end of that journey that the financial rewards just come because of the person who you have become, rather than the
Exactly.
faking it till you make it skill sets, right? Of dealing with challenges and things like that, which is a really interesting perspective.
And it moves you from arrogance to confidence. You know, when I first started out, I remember this director talking to me and said, "Boy, you're arrogant." Oh, no, "Boy, you're a little arrogant." And I said, "No, I'm a lot arrogant." And that was my young self, not very bright. That didn't get me any points. That didn't help him. It didn't make him want to teach me or connect with me. Instead, "All right, smartass, you do what you want to do." And I appreciate people who learn on their own. But if you don't know what you don't know, how do you keep learning?
Mm-hmm.
You need mentors and coaches. And so by being humble, you open the door to people sharing everything in their mind with you. You know, I'll go to a hardware store and I'll ask this teenage kid, "I need this tool or this tool." And my wife's like, "Why are you asking him? You know everything about that tool. He can't tell you anything." And what I tell her is, I know everything I know, but he may know one thing that I don't. And I'm gonna sort through it. I'm gonna sift through that information because I want all the information as much as I possibly can to make a good decision.
Was it the way in which your parents upraised you? Did you have early experiences that kind of, I would say, instilled this mindset in you to ask for help, to be humble, right? Of course, we all go through our times of arrogance, but there's obviously some sort of like hard coding in your system and how you were raised to kind of help you come back to this place.
It comes from my grandmother mostly. My grandmother grew up in Depression times, but she was an actuary. And so that's crazy to think of a woman going through that much college and then being successful in her career. But when I hung out with her as a child, we were helping the senior citizens at the Y. We were going to the library and volunteering. And so at a very young age, she taught me how to give back. I have dyslexia, and that's very hard for me to learn. And they didn't really know about that kind of stuff when I was a kid. So I was told lazy or disruptive. And it wasn't until college, well, high school, I figured out about dyslexia, but I didn't care about school.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I was told, "You're never going to graduate if you don't get it together." And so I then went, yeah, same thing.
Just like me, man. Yeah, exactly.
And so I said, "Well, how can I graduate?" And the thing that's strange is my parents had very little to do with this. Back in the day, parents didn't get involved that much. You know, it was just this counselor talking to me, telling me, "You're not going to go to college, so what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, how am I going to graduate?" And he said, "Dude, you can't do this. You got to take all honors classes and get A's. Sign me up." And that's what I did. So I graduated with a 2.0 because I got straight A's my senior year in all honors AP classes, and went into construction because I'm not smart enough to go into school. But my parents pushed very hard at, you can do anything that you want to do and you can accomplish things. And I think that's what drove inside of me, is once I accomplished that year, it sort of told me I am capable.
Reset your thermostat, that internal thermostat of what you recognize
Correct.
You could accomplish. Yeah.
And now I think of the world like shooting pool. I look at a pool table and I go, I can get maybe 2 balls in. But that doesn't mean they all can't go in. There are professionals that'll clear that table, clear it again and again. The solution is there. I just have to figure out how to get it. And the more I learn, the more balls I could put in, the more confidence I get. And if I can't do it, who can.
I love this mindset because there's a lot of people out there, especially in this younger generation, right? And the emergence of social media and all the language about like, you don't have to go to higher education. You don't have to accomplish all these things. There's a lot of people who check out a lot earlier in school now. Back when I was going through school, I remember coming home in second grade and being like, Mom, how long do I have to keep going to this whole school thing? Because if something doesn't seem like it's connecting to how I like to learn or engage, right? And she said, Keen, you have a long time to go. I, like you, graduated from college or graduated from high school with like a 2.3 GPA because I was on the honor roll my senior year, because I actually kind of everything clicked for me. And I was like, oh, wait, if I actually just do this work, if I'm preemptive, if I try, I'm going to get good results, right? So I want to reverse a little bit. When you recognize that school's not for you, right? There's a validating system around us of people who are in our class, who are getting good grades. Maybe we're not. We're always being told that we're lesser than based on the scales that we're being measured. How did you keep between the ears solid to recognize there was more on the other side?
Wow. I don't know if I did it in high school. I don't know if I did really. It wasn't until I hit Psych 101, when I finally took a course that I connected with, and I was like, I'm pretty good at this. In high school, I built relationships up. I was funny and, popular in that way. So I connected with people that way, but I did not get the school stuff and didn't think I was going to get it really until sophomore year in college. And I didn't go full time. I went full time to school, but I didn't go away to school. Mm-hmm. I went straight into being a construction worker because that was my career. And my parents said, no, try. And I did the best I could. And it wasn't until I really was reading about people and I said, people are easy to me. And I'm watching these others say that it's so hard to understand people, just like I said it was hard to understand math. And I go, well, maybe this is a skill set I have. Later to find out that people with dyslexia are very good with people, very good at systems. They understand big picture. They're able to see puzzles and just see how pieces come together. I didn't know that at the time because I was being measured on reading and numbers.
It seems like you naturally had that CEO gene, right? Top down, can see the whole picture, right? Got the people element, which is really cool. I had the same experience as you. I went to a school called Coastal Carolina to go play baseball. Once again, got there and was going through my classes and I was like, none of this really resonates with me until I sat in a communications 102 class and a communication theory class at the same time. And we talked about your ability to connect with others, hold conversation, and make them feel safe in a moment was something that just like got my brain thinking. I was like, whoa, this is for me. I can talk to people. I can understand the structure of a conversation, why we communicate in the ways that we do. And it was that human gene that kind of popped up in front of me that said, maybe this is my skill set, very similar to you. Really
exactly. Cool. I love humans. I mean, I really do. And being around them is how I learned to be the leader that I am. Even that Anita was that CEO that encouraged me to do my job and move up, and at a very early age in my career. And I said, I don't think I can do it. I can't be you. And her wisdom was, you can't be me. You have to be you if you're going to be a CEO. If you try to be somebody else as a CEO, you will get caught and it won't go well. And that really released me into embracing and building confidence in this is the person I am. It's not who I'm faking to be. And when I went on interviews, it's like, here I am. If you like me, great. If you don't, that's okay too. I don't want to trick you into hiring me because we won't be happy. That's the same as a marriage. If you start pushing people together that don't belong, it's not going to work. You can't fake it. It has to be like breathing. It has to be just life. And I think successful leaders are out there because they found the right connection to their soul or to their, aura, whatever they are. It's not hard work. It's stressful. It's tiring, all those things. But I'm not against the grain on who I am.
Isn't that a beautiful element to recognizing who you truly are and leaning into that person. Not only are you subconsciously and consciously recognizing that Bill's showing up as Bill, I'm not trying to fool or convince anybody, but the people who are also sitting across from you in those rooms recognize that you're showing up as yourself as well, not trying to be a copy and paste version of some book or some other leader who was a mentor to you, which is so
Right.
powerful. It's that natural
Genuineness.
human, ability to pick up on that authenticity.
To be genuine, and that comes with confidence, not arrogance. And it's taking those little risks where I'm going to try this personality thing. I'm going to try the way I communicate. I'm going to try this, and let's see the results of that. And really look inwardly of, did it work? What did I do to influence that moment in a good or bad way? Can I change it? Do I want to change it? And that's how things get, that's how people will join you, because they just are like, wow, he believes it. I believe him. Let's go.
So we go to college, we come across that Psych 101 class, where we fall in love with this work. We become an LMFT, right? Then we recognize we're going to become a CEO.
I wish it was that quick, the way you
I
said
know,
it.
it
Psych
goes
101,
quick.
license.
That's the beauty of the podcast, baby. Right? Exactly. Psych, license. Now we're a CEO.
Yeah.
One of the things that I recognize is, although we found our confidence in ourselves and who we're going to show up as, sometimes when we take on new opportunities like you did at Helping Hand, sometimes it doesn't always feel like the right element. And our support system, like our wives or our partners, will sometimes remind us of why we're doing the work that we're doing. Can you share that little story with us? Because I thought that was so impactful, if you're okay with that.
Yeah. That was a big milestone in my career. So most of what I've done in my life has been with at-risk kids, gang members, and drug dealers. And I really enjoyed seeing the child in them and bringing out hope. But then there was this opportunity that came up in another state, because I'm from Indiana and I work in Illinois now. And it's in Illinois, helping people with intellectual disabilities. One thing that I knew I did not want to do. All the education that I went through was, you can't help people with intellectual disabilities. You can't connect with them, blah, 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 blah. None of that's true. Anyway, I went to this job and I walked into the day program, where it's all adults. They're in a very large room, probably about 100 and some of them. And if you know anybody with an intellectual disability, they want to get to know you right away. That's their number one thing, is, who is this guy? And so they got into my space. And I like my space. I don't want to be hugged. I don't want to be touched. Well, they came and they wanted to hug, touch, feel. They were speaking differently. They were sounding different, smelling different. And I had a panic attack. I freaked out for the first time in my career. I'm always in control. Sadly, I've had guns in my face when I did my job. Those things didn't scare me. Being around all these people with intellectual disabilities scared me. And I had to get out of there. I drove home. It was probably my second or third day at the job. And I drove home about 45 minutes, pulled over 3 times on the road to throw up, because I destroyed my career. I've been working so hard to learn so many things and move up the ladder and learn. And here I am choosing a field that I cannot help these individuals. I can't do anything. And when I got home, my wonderful wife said, "What's wrong with you?" And I told her that story. I said, "It's just too much for me." And she said, "Are they people?" And I said, "Well, of course they're people." And she said, "You'll be fine. Go back tomorrow. You're good at people." And I did. And what I forced myself to be is with them more often than not, to get to know them more. And it was like the Wizard of Oz. Their diagnosis disappeared and everything became color. They became human beings with great talents and skills. And I wanted to be around them more. They literally transformed my life. And now that I am so happy at doing this for the last 13, 14 years, my wife has changed her career. She's now a paraprofessional working with children with disabilities in a middle school. My kids were involved and they've connected more with people with disabilities. It literally makes your life better. You understand kindness and patience and so much more. But thanks to my wife understanding that, I kept forward on my career.
And you transformed everybody's lives in the same manner.
I hope so. I hope so.
I mean, it's just like one of my favorite sayings is we do not gain confidence by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but having a stack of undeniable proof behind us that we are who we say we are. And when your wife said, are they people?
Right.
And you said, yeah, of course they're people. And then she said, go back to work. You're going to be okay. You're going to figure it out. Like that confidence that she had in you, she believed in you. There's an amazing quote by an author named Kevin Kelly. He says, we lead others by knowing by letting them know what we expect of them, which often may exceed what they expect of themselves. Let them know or give them a reputation that they can live up to. And it seems like sometimes in our moments of doubt, our support system and the partner who we have has the ability to breathe that confidence into us, which is such a powerful story.
Just a quick moment on that too is that happened as I became my first CEO position here. Walking in the door to my office, I was like, yes, I did it. And within seconds, oh crap, I did it. What am I supposed to do now? All this training, I still didn't know what to do. And in time, in a few months, I met with my executive team and I said to them, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You guys are all very good at your job. I don't know how to make you better because I don't know how to do your job. I'm not a finance, HR, whatever. And the thing that happened was they lifted me up. They told me, this is what we saw you're good at, Bill. Keep doing that. That makes me feel good and makes me drive harder and all this other kind of stuff. So when I'm weaker and there are moments that I get like that, my team is there to support me and say, they're people. You can go and do it. They still push in the same way. I'm not perfect. I'm a human being. I don't always have it together. And I love that my team doesn't see weakness in my vulnerability.
And it's the culture that you've created, right? In our previous conversation, you said something like helping hand, right? We've got two hands, one to help ourselves and one to help others. It's amazing to think about how that's not only for the clients and the community that you serve, but it's also the leaders of the organization. It's the team that we're helping as well. Like what an amazing opportunity.
I expect that of our mission and vision is used for all of us all the time. And we talk about how it applies to our everyday life because then you're living it.
Mm-hmm. So here's a question for you. I think we should really hammer on the necessity of the services and the role that you guys play in your community. I talked about previously when I got into this space, right, of helping people with, any type of intellectual disabilities. This was with the Grant to Gift Autism Foundation here in Southern Nevada. 1 in 56 children were being diagnosed with autism, as an example, in 2018. As of our gala event, it's 1 in 36 children. So not only are we seeing more kiddos in our communities being diagnosed with intellectual disabilities, but it's also the families who are looking for support. And the work that you guys do is so fundamental. So how does the mission, what you guys do at the organization, fill your cup every single day with the work that you do?
So our mission actually says transforming the lives of all connected through genuine care and education. It doesn't talk about people with disabilities because people with disabilities are not the problem that need to be solved. It really is the rest of us that have to learn how to be kind and open-minded and willing to teach and help. And we preach that all the time. They hear it from me all the time of our mission statement and making sure that families know how to apply it to themselves. If the family unit, maybe my marriage and family stuff again coming out, is not strong, the identified patient is not going to get any better. And so when we point at somebody with a disability and say, well, that's the one you have to fix, it really isn't. It's the people around of how we need to change to work with those individuals that have different needs or different ways of explaining themselves. And then it goes bigger to the community needs to figure out how to work with all people. Forcing individuals to comply to certain things that say, just like you said, you're smart if you know math. No, there's lots of genius. We hear that all different levels of genius. But when we only measure it one way, we're alienating a lot of people that can bring so much to the soup or stew of life. that's what's awesome. It's all that stuff mixed together makes us all better.
And this is where I think, organizations and leaders like yourself that can continue to hammer home this message that it takes a community to come together to support everyone to be able to deal with things like this as we deal with the kind of our societal changes. The analogy in my head popped up. There was a famous image that was popping around social media for a while, and it was a whole bunch of animals, a monkey, a zebra, right? An elephant, all that kind of stuff.
I think I know where you're going, yeah.
If you asked all of these animals to climb this tree, right, the elephant would be looked at as completely inept. It wouldn't be able to climb the tree. That does not mean that it does not have other areas of genius. And it's like thinking about how our society is just so multifaceted today with our ability to support each other is so important. But also, I think about the role that you guys play in the community as being the trusted resource of good education for a family in need. We talked about my kind of upbringing in our previous conversation. Biracial man, father's black, mother's white, two sides of the family. Approach mental, behavioral health, any type of diagnosis completely different. And it's really challenging to think about. Here in Southern Nevada, we have a 6,000 family wait list for access to services and diagnosis. In your area, how big is that list?
Yeah, a little over 30,000.
30,000 people. So it's like you guys are playing.
That's just who we're counting. There's so many that we can't count that we don't even know about.
Exactly. So how are you guys thinking about creating that safe space or that opportunity for connection in the community for people to reach out and ask questions, even though they might not feel comfortable about their situation?
We're really getting some traction here. It's not about, this is the service I want. Do you want it? It's, we go to them and say, what are you looking for? Because we run all the gamut. We have housing, we have employment, schools, all that. And what our older generation wants is nowhere near what the next generation wants. And if we keep trying to make the VCR better, I don't know if young people even know what the VCR is, but I think of people with intellectual disabilities, programming that's what it is. We go, here's a VCR, well, let's add a little extra to it. No, we have to think completely different on how we're doing something. We have to get into, past the CD disc and past the downloading. It's something new that they need to hear. So first we try to connect with families and listen. Lots of listening and figuring out how to meet their needs. One thing that we've heard is they don't want this institutional feel. They don't want their kids to live in a home with 5, 6, 7, 8 people in the home. They don't want necessarily staff to be around 24/7. That's something that they feel is not normal. Mm-hmm. So we've really embraced technology, and we've grabbed onto a few different ways that it's going to complement the human being that's working in the house, but you won't need as much. And that individual can learn how to do more for themselves using the iPhone or using software, using robots that are going to be coming out soon, I would imagine, AI, all that kind of stuff. And it's being successful with us. Ultimately, what families want, who's going to take care of my child when I'm gone?
Mm-hmm. Peace of mind.
And are they going to be safe? And what we try to do, what my job is for Helping Hand, is to stabilize the organization. We're a $26 million company right now. We have zero debt. We secured an endowment that's going to keep us around forever, millions of dollars to do that. We have a great foundation of donors that understand the difference from having money in the bank and needing money to operate. And so they invest in us so we can be the best. Stabilizing our workforce. We don't have very much turnover. Our retention rate is around 89%. In Illinois, the average is 50% for this field.
Yep.
We treat our staff with value, respectful, pay them as best we possibly can. All those foundational things, then, I think, secure the agency to be around forever and allows all of our staff to think outside the box and create. I am not the one that has all the ideas. You got to let people be free and let them create.
I heard a really interesting perspective on a podcast yesterday. I want to get your 2 cents on this. So there's a guy out there, his name is Jason Fried. He owns a company that creates these software platforms. And he said, one of the things that I've started to recognize as I've become a more seasoned CEO is my job in the organization is often to insert risk into the organization. Now, before you start freaking out, this is what that means. People who often show up to work and work inside an organization, they're often risk mitigators. They want to make sure that everything goes well. They want to create a good experience for their customers. They want to retain their job. They want to create sustainability and predictability. It's often the CEO's role to create frameworks around how we can insert risk. How can we be curious about how we can tackle these challenges? How can I get people to experiment, to do things differently? Because if we do things the same, we're going to get the same results, and the future's looking for different, I would say, approaches to challenges. How do you think about twofold? Curiosity in the organization, but also your ability to add a little bit of risk as that like little special spice to the culture of the organization.
My team would say I'm risk averse. I like risk, and that's where we grow. Change is when the exciting thing comes out of it. A lot of bad ideas are talked about before the great one is expressed. So risk is important. I think in nonprofit specifically, it's difficult to risk when you don't have stability. And so that's why that was my first goal, is to gain stability of the organization. The more stable and stronger foundation I have at the company, the more risk I can take. We have a DAC team. It's called Direction, Alignment, and Commitment, and it's 30 of our leaders that meet with me every other month to talk about things, leadership, but also the business. And they were asking about the endowment. And they said, what are we going to spend with that endowment? And I said, we're not going to spend the endowment. That endowment is giving us opportunity to take risks. I budgeted this year with a deficit in all of our departments. I overstaffed all of my departments with the hope they can backfill it with census and product and service. I could not take that risk if I didn't have an endowment. I would have been afraid to, because I don't want to lay people off. And if we make a mistake at the end of the year that I misjudged this, I could pull it back without laying people off and making a big mistake. So I think risk, I love what that person said. Risk is important. If you're not moving forward, you're going backwards.
I mean, we're always having to push the envelope. You know what I mean? Especially, I love hearing the mindset of curiosity or exploration. I'm trying to figure out how I want to frame this, and what you were saying about using technology, right, to be that accelerator, not a replacement, so we can do our job better, be able to support individuals in more ways, which is really important.
I like fun ideas. So creativity to me is fun. I will giggle a lot of times when staff will say something to me, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I have no idea how to do it, but what you just said is very cool. Let's go try that. Who knows? We may make what they said come true, or we may go a completely different direction and create something even more exciting. You
want to hear a funny story about that?
Sure.
So back in the day,
said no.
I mean, I would still tell you anyway. This is my show, okay? So
there you go.
One of the examples that I love about this is the culture of experimentation and creativity creates so many opportunities that we can't even see. Back in the day, Amazon made a $690 million mistake. They tried to compete with the iPhone and the Google Pixel with what they called the Fire phone. Ended up not being able to get market penetration, and they're like, we're going to have to shut this down. And somebody was like, man, Jeff is going to be really upset with us, Jeff Bezos. And he came into a board meeting with all of his executives and said, hey, we're shutting this down. And they're like, what are we going to do? Who's going to get fired because of this? And he said, guess what? The things that we did here in experimenting created opportunities for us in the future. What did we get from this $690 million experiment? Well, we got the Kindle because we recognized a digital reader was something we were going to put in this phone, but we also got Alexa, the voice agent, out of it as well. And so if you got Alexa and the Kindle out of a $690 million experiment that was supposed to be a phone, that's still a win, because you still were willing to go down the path of discovery, which I feel like is so important for so many organizations.
Story. I exactly. There is some wishful thinking, and I do caution young CEOs on wishful thinking. I have an idea, and somehow it's just going to happen. There has to be some plot or thought that you're going. But yeah, some of the exhaust is worth the money, and you create some really cool stuff. And I've created a lot of programs along my career, and some worked and some didn't, but I'm using pieces of them to make something even better.
One of the areas of transition, which I want to talk about here, is you going from an LMFT to a president and CEO. The skill set of leading others is really difficult, and it often takes time to mature that skill set. What were some of the biggest lessons that you learned in this maturation journey and becoming the leader who you are on how to invest into others and get the most out of your team that maybe the younger version of Bill didn't recognize?
You don't have to be right. You don't have to be the smartest person and know everything. It's okay to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is not weakness. That I remember, and as I was growing up in my career, one of the meetings I had, I was vulnerable as a director, and I said it to my team. I said, I'm not really sure what the answer is here. And they came at me. Well, if you don't know, then who does know, and how are we going to know? And I heard myself, and I stopped, and I said, I didn't say I wouldn't figure it out. Don't confuse me admitting what I don't know today with what I'm going to learn tomorrow. And I think that's the same thing here. I can be put in any situation, I believe, and I will learn. I don't learn by just osmosis. You got to put the effort in, you got to work hard, but I know I'll figure it out. I trust my brain can put things together and figure out what's going on to make the best decision. People, I think I've always known this, but people are what make you a leader. If you're by yourself, you're not a leader. And if you're forcing people to follow you because of your title or because of any other thing you hold over them, that is not a leader. You're more into the management. Mm-hmm. People are going to listen to me because I'm a CEO, but they're going to follow me because of it's Bill. It has nothing to do with my title. And I tell that to my staff all the time. I say, if I got promoted, people would follow me. I said, no. I could be in a room full of firemen and the house is on fire. If I know what I'm talking about more than they do, they'll follow me.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for me that I learned.
The I'm going to figure it out attitude makes you incredibly dangerous. I feel like so much of the world and how we perceive it is we have to have everything figured out before we're going to make our next move. But it's often your ability to figure things out, right? Or like build the plane as you're taking off, right? Is something that's super important.
That drives my team crazy, but they do learn to live with it.
Yeah.
Because I don't always have the finished product in my head. And people, we follow the DISC. I don't know if you know the DISC. So majority of the population are the S. They tell me what to do and I will get it done great. And so they want really strong direction. And I force people to think and to make decisions on their own in the environment they're capable of. That's when you're going to get great ideas.
I've been having this slow but steady transformation in how I kind of look at how I'm thinking about building my team, right? I always thought as a younger entrepreneur that Keenan needed to have the answer to the challenges that my team was trying to solve in order for them to do their job. But at some point in time, I started looking at myself not as somebody who's on the court as a point guard with the team, dishing the ball around, basketball reference for everybody, but rather the coach on the sideline who focuses on developing the skill sets in each of my team members that are necessary so they can overcome challenges, create ideas, and take initiative on their own. That sense of leverage has been a big realization for me. And I'm not sure why it took me so long, but when did you have that realization as being the coach instead of the point guard who's also the player coach, if that makes sense?
Probably halfway in my career. I was just starting to become a chief of something, and I was able to accomplish more when you let people be people and stop trying to boss them around. I think about the hard part is I have an idea in my head and I want you to do it. And then when you're not close to it, I say, move out of the way and I micromanage you.
Mm-hmm.
Where I try to teach people is that as long as they hit the target, we're good. They don't have to hit the bullseye. We may even move the bullseye because of the new target that they hit. And sitting in this mindset that I have to know everything is so stressful. And it's just, we just aren't smart enough, and your company will fail. You have to surround yourself with people who don't think like you, who are different, and they constantly challenge each other and have productive conflict, through respect and trust. Then great things happen. There are so many things that happen here, and they're happening right now while I'm having this podcast that I had nothing to do with, because in my mind, I just got things out of the way for them to make them do their job better. Servant leadership. How can I help you? How can I be stellar customer service for you? Not how can I tell you what to do. Here's a quick thing I learned. I remember learning this when I became chief operating officer for the first time, my first chief. Literally, I just remembered this as you're talking to me. And I said, if I ever become the boss, I'm going to change this, this, and this, because those bosses are morons and I know better. Finally, I worked my way up the ladder and I become a chief. And what I realized was the things that I knew were from years ago. They're not from today. And so I had to ask my staff, what do you want now? And my joke was, I didn't have a say back then, and I don't have a say now. Because the right thing is to listen to the people that are doing the work and figure out how to get them the tools to do it, to tweak or nudge them so they're following in the right direction of your vision, not in the day-to-day tasks or the short-term goals. Are they getting the big-term goal? That's the most important thing.
There's a saying which is really impactful for this moment. Here's one of the dangers of thinking that we have to have everything planned out over something like a career, right? When we make a 5-year strategic plan, in year 3, in year 4, we are doing what we thought back when we started the strategic plan.
Yes.
Instead of doing what we think in the moment with better data, better opportunities to make decisions. Does that make sense? I'd rather be thinking in the moment what I'm thinking now than what I thought years ago when I made the plan to get to where I'm at now.
I got challenged on that just the other day on LinkedIn. Somebody wrote about, you got to think through cuts, and it's hard to cut during this time of the year and all that kind of stuff. And what I wrote on there was, cutting is not a strategy. It's the results of poor strategy. And the author wrote back, goes, no, cutting is a strategy and sometimes needs to be used. And I didn't respond. I don't make multiple comments after that. But my point is that if you weren't thinking far enough ahead, you wouldn't be in the situation that you're in. Yes, cutting is a crisis tool. We made a mistake. Something's not right. How do we save the ship from sinking? Here's one way of doing it. But if you have a true strategy, you will eliminate the opportunities for those things to happen.
It's like saying my strategy for creating financial freedom is at the end of every single month, I'm going to dispute my credit card challenge or my credit card transactions. You know what I mean? Be like, no, you didn't budget correctly to actually execute on the plan, and now we're trying to go back to the system. You know what I mean? So I'm a big sports guy. I've talked about it a couple of times here. I really was a baseball player when I went to college. And so I want to give you an opportunity for your Babe Ruth moment. Babe Ruth has a famous clip where he calls his shot to center field. What are the next couple years going to look like for Helping Hand, Bill?
Well, you made it an easier question. You said Helping Hand, because I am in trying to figure out what's the next for me. I love Helping Hand. I think it's amazing. And Helping Hand may be my next, but I've always had personal goals, and I've become so much part of Helping Hand that I sort of forgot about me. And so
very important. Okay. Yeah. Let's pivot a little bit and talk.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go back to the more challenging answer here. Now we're going to
Yeah.
get into it. Yeah, exactly. So what's going on with Bill? What are we thinking about?
Well, it's because I've always had a goal to be a nonprofit CEO. And then once I got it, it was like, okay, let's make sure we know what we're doing and we can do it well. Now I'm trying to figure out, did I reach the pinnacle of where I'm supposed to be? And now I just keep doing it better. Is there something else out there for me? Is there something on the side? Maybe I'm still meant to be here at Helping Hand, but I got to pick up something else that I need to do to make me feel like I'm still growing and improving. We challenged. Nothing is ever easy here. My board tells me all the time, take a break, slow down. It's just not in me. I can't. So I don't know what that is. I really don't have this drive to, well, I want to run a $500 million organization. Maybe. I don't care how much money that is. I don't necessarily even care about how much money I make. It's all about purpose. Is my purpose still here, or is my purpose supposed to be somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, the question that I had a mentor ask me one time is, Keenan, who are you becoming? The skill sets, the experiences, our ability to overcome challenges, how we show up in the face of adversity, right, is all a nod to the person in the future of who we are becoming, and to kind of act in alignment with that. Provocative. Yeah, exactly.
I don't even know what that means. I don't care, but it's provocative. But it is. That's deep, man.
It is.
And if you can, meditate on that, that'll help you get there where you want to be. And I don't think it's going to help you. Oh, there's the solution. It's going to get you the next step to creating your legacy. What are people going to remember you for? So Helping Hand as a whole, we're going to continue to grow slowly, but we're going to maintain that we are the top quality in what we do, and that we're very innovative in working with families to do things differently. I have a great team, and it only gets better as we go to our directors and our associate directors. So I feel like we have a good succession plan. So when I'm gone, I hope it keeps going.
So Bill, we talked a little bit about this. Part of the tradition on the podcast as we put the wheels down to land is our previous guest wants to ask you a blind question. Now, blind question is coming from an amazing leader out of the Indianapolis area. I talked about him as a part of GDC Inc., president there. He wants to know, would you rather be smart or charming?
It's hard when you're both.
That was my answer too. But you gotta pick one. You gotta pick one.
Pick one. I'm going to go with charming, because then you can bring more smart people around you. You can connect with more people. I think charming gets you further in the world. Knowing all the answers, but nobody wants to play with you, it's good for you, but it's not good for everyone else.
And that, sir, is where we're going to end today's episode. Once again, Bill Dwyer, the president and CEO of Helping Hand. What an amazing definition of heart and hustle, sir. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
This was great, and thank you so much for thinking of us.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we'll catch you in the next one. That's a wrap.